Hello Year 6, welcome to today's virtual lesson. As you are aware, I am Miss Lacey, Head of Year 7 here at the Archer Academy. In addition to my Head of Year responsibilities, I'm also a history teacher, and today I have the pleasure of taking you through this virtual lesson. Now, I'm going to get started with a super starter. What inferences can you make about the individuals in these images? Now, you may know quite a bit of information about them, you may not know much, and that's absolutely fine. An inference is quite simply, what can you tell? What can you learn from these people? Okay, think about what they're wearing, their posture, where the light is even shining on them, okay? So, what can you learn about them? And if you do know some information about them, what do you know? What previous knowledge are you coming to the table with today? So, I'm going to give you 5 minutes and I would like you to create a spider diagram, a detailed list, anything in terms of what inferences you can make or what previous knowledge you have. 5 minutes, off you go. Now I'm hoping that you've paused the video there, you've given yourself 5 minutes and you have worked really hard on that, I'm sure you have. Now you may have inferred that they're really important people. If we look at this individual here, look at the fabric around her neck. It's very detailed. That suggests that she's quite wealthy, she's able to afford that. You may have looked at their headdress. What type of person wears something on their head? Usually symbols power, okay, symbolic of power. Now, as I said, some of you may have known some information about them. You would have recognised that this, of course, is the Tudor dynasty, the Tudor family, okay, a very, very famous range of monarchs here who created long-term change here in the UK, okay? Now, our title for today is There is Something About Mary Stuart, and your learning objective is to be able to understand why Mary, Queen of Scots, became such a threat and decide whether or not she deserved her fate. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to get down your title and your learning objective for today. In addition to that, I'd like you to think about this image here. What might this be? Try and be creative. It's one of our Archer outcomes. Think creatively. Doesn't matter if it's right or wrong. What do you think it might be? So title, learning objective, and also a quick note answering this question. What might this be? Give yourself 3 minutes, off you go. Excellent. Now we're ready to move on. So our first task, we're going to look at this. Now you will recognise that this is a family tree. We're looking at the Tudors, it's their family tree. Okay, now it's been cut down because here we've got 3 individuals with whom Henry had children, okay? And we can see here the children that he had. So we've got Mary the First, okay? Elizabeth the First and Edward the Sixth, okay? Now here we have them in terms of their age, I suppose in terms of, in order of their age. They didn't actually become monarchs in that order, however, and that's something you'll learn a little bit more about when you join our school community in September, when you officially join. You're already a part of that community, of course. Now, in terms of Mary, Queen of Scots, and her claim, we're looking at Henry's sibling, okay, Margaret Tudor. She has a child called James V, who marries Mary Guise. They have a child, Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, traditionally, you could argue that perhaps if you're looking at this, well, maybe she doesn't actually have that much of a claim to the throne. However, what we do have is their deaths, okay? And without an heir to the throne, and by that I mean a child, without Elizabeth having a child, then the next person in line would be Mary, Queen of Scots. So, Elizabeth had been queen for 10 years. She had not married, and she had no children. This meant that if she died, her cousin, Mary, Queen of Scots, would become queen of England and Wales too, okay? So that is her claim to the throne there. Now, if we look at Mary as an individual, and here's some background information for you that you might find quite interesting, okay? Francis II, King of France. Mary lived in France with him. They married young, but he died in a freak riding accident at the age of 16. So Mary, at this point, then moves back to Scotland. However, she also then marries Lord Darnley, Henry Stuart, who's an English lord, and her cousin. They married at 22. With him, she had her first child, James VI. Henry Stuart, however, also dies, and he dies in a strangulation. He dies from strangulation, which is quite unusual to think that she had two of her husbands die very quickly. Okay? Then we've got the Earl of Bothworth. Now, Bothworth was a suspect for Darnley's murder. Okay? The Scots didn't like him much, and they locked her up in prison and castles. Okay? But Bothworth, however, was able to escape and flee to Europe. So we can see here that there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of odd behaviour. There's a lot of suspicion. There's a lot of reason to be suspicious of Mary. Now, I would like you to give yourself 5 minutes and write a paragraph. What can you tell from this information about Mary, Queen of Scots? 5 minutes, off you go. By this point, you will have written down your paragraphs, and we will be moving on to this. Now, usually a student would be reading out the information. I wouldn't be reading out so much for you. However, in this case, I will. So, Mary never knew her father, who died soon after her birth. As a little girl, she was sent away from her mother to France. Her first husband died 2 years after their wedding. Her second husband was murdered. Her third husband ran off without her and then deserted her. The Scots rejected her, and so she escaped to England. So we now know that Mary is in England, okay? I'm going to give you 8 minutes, and I would like you to complete the following 3 activities. The first one, write a sentence, perhaps 2, but no more than that, explaining Mary's situation. What dilemma is she now facing? Then, Mary arrives in England. Queen Elizabeth has 3 choices, okay? I'd like you to think about what she should do, and perhaps most importantly, why she should do that. Would you recommend, imagine you were her advisor, would you recommend that she sends her back to Scotland, she puts her in prison, or she allows her to carry on with life in England? So, as I've said, not only do I want you to select one of these, but I want you to justify that. That is perhaps the most important part. Why would you say that there's an advantage to the choice that you have chosen? Then your honest question, why do you think the Scottish people rejected her? Why was she forced into, not exile officially, but why do you think they rejected her to the point where she left Scotland? I'm going to give you 8 minutes, and I would like you to complete that activity. Off you go. Okay, now following on from that, this note has been coded using a cipher, okay, and it was actually used by Mary. I'd like you to think about what it means, and I'm going to give you 5 minutes to crack it. Here you're going to have to be resilient because it's not easy, okay? You're also going to have to think creatively here, all right? So this is the message, and this is the cipher that I'm giving you to support you with that. What has she actually said here? What is she saying? 5 minutes, off you go. Okay, so I'm hoping that you've got something like this. To Anthony Babington, I agree that you can murder Queen Elizabeth at the earliest time. From Mary. Okay, now we're going to go the other way, and I'd like you to think about this sentence. Can you encode it? So to put it into a code. The meeting place is where I first met you. Give that a go. Give you 3 minutes for that. Off you go. Now, you may have worked out that we were looking at the Babington plot here, okay? And I'm going to read you some more general information about it. Anthony Babington, a rich Catholic man, devised a plot to kill Elizabeth, rescue Mary, and to put her on the throne. Babington and Mary wrote in code, agreeing the plan. Elizabeth's spies intercepted both letters. Babington was arrested and charged with treason. In September, Babington was executed. Was this the last straw for Mary? Okay, now I'd like you to think about what the word treason means. Oh, I just revealed that by accident. But you probably would have gotten something like the following. It is a crime against the king or queen. Okay, now our final activity will be a plenary, and that will help bring our lesson together for today. We have here an eyewitness account of the execution of Mary. Bit of a spoiler alert there. And what we're going to do is I'm going to read this out to you, and I would like you to give yourself no more than 10 minutes and see how far you can get with these activities. If you have 10 minutes and you get here, that's absolutely fine, okay? As long as you have really explored that why. However, for some of you, you may be able to get onto that honest thinking, which requires a bit more in terms of stretch and challenge for you. As I said, I'll read this out to you. So, the Queen of Scots sat on a stool, in her hand a crucifix. She began with tears in her eyes to pray loudly in Latin. When she had finished, she was stripped of her outer garments and blindfolded. She knelt down upon the cushion without any sign of fear of death, and, groping for the block, she laid down her head. Then she cried out, "Into your hands, O Lord," 3 or 4 times. She endured 2 strokes of the executioner's axe and made a very small noise, and so the executioner cut off her head, except for a small piece of gristle. Then he lifted her head and shouted, "God save the Queen." Okay, so give yourself 10 minutes, some time to bring together your learning today. See how far you can get. Well, Year 6, thank you very much for your time today. Now, I am very aware that that's not a normal taster lesson, but I hope that you were able to take something from that and enjoy yourselves as well. I look forward to meeting you very soon. Thank you.